Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Peter Hostrawser here. That is Alli Privitt. There, I got the point down. Hope you're on that side when I, edit this thing. So, Alli, how's it going?
It's good. We just got off of an amazing last week episode with Brooke.
Yeah.
We're like she just took this series to the next level of what is being done
hmm
uh with work-based learning and disrupting education, in my opinion. And it's like this is what gets us so excited about the podcast is that neither of us had heard really of NAF, or like, it's like, or maybe I had in passing, but not like I didn't really understand their impact and like their mission and how disruptive it is in like such a good way.
Right.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, big disruptor, like really kind of like, I mean, somebody who's been there for 45 years and, but, the more like now is the time where people need it. I feel like there's this uptick in people realizing that we're a skills-based economy, that building these programs are needed, and not just seeing like that to have a program to build the skills, but like to have a program to really drop blockers, to make it more equitable for everyone, whether you're rural, you're suburban, urban, whoever you are in the United States, like building these programs, just being very intentional on things. And that is something that is very close to my heart because I know these experiences change lives. They change lives. And I think we've seen it. That's why we become educators in general. But when you can change somebody's like thought process or direction to go further, faster, in whatever they want to do, man, there's nothing else like it. So I felt like Brooke talking about that all the way through. Talk about somebody who's very passionate. She says there's 40 others that are that passionate. So you can see where an organization like this just like is just expanding. And but the other thing is I really like that we left this out there for our listeners, because you can go right now to, and I have it up right on the next screen, is naf.org, and there are resources you can use now. So a win-win, win, win-win.
For me, the biggest takeaway, like if you didn't listen to the whole episode, but you want like the top thing that you could use right now, if you are a student or an educator or a parent, is the No Pro,
Yeah.
right? The mentored industry project. One, students can make money. Hello, do they need any more incentive?
hmm
Like I'm gonna go tell all of the students I know that are like in high school right now and be like that their school districts aren't doing NAF, but
hmm
right, like what a game changer for families who are homeschooling, or you're in a public school and they don't have this, or you're in a private school and that's not the direction they're going, but you want experience in the workforce because Brooke didn't share this explicitly, but it's all over her story. Is that like what her mother and father did, she didn't see herself doing. And so
Right.
she was like, I don't know what I want to do. And everyone's asking me, what do I want to be when I grow up? Which she did explore in the podcast and had just such a great answer about like, just helping students understand their aspirations, like exposure, helping them develop skills that are useful no matter which direction they go, and then building social capital with connections. Like you can't go wrong with a program that is building that trifecta. Like, uh, I just think go explore No Pro if you are an educator or a parent of someone in high school, or if you're a student listening to this, like I I can't see why you wouldn't want to take advantage. I mean, they said $10,000 a month of prizes
Yeah.
and building your resume and getting experience. Like it seems like a win-win-win.
Right. I mean, if you, I that's the weird thing. Like Man, there's so many different areas I want to go right now, and they're all like coming out. But well, let's start with those three pieces, like aspiration, skills, and connections, right? She mentioned that those are the three big things they want people to come out with. But I think if you're a school, right, wherever you are, if you're primary, secondary, post-secondary, whatever, you want people to have aspirations. Like I have a goal, I have something I want to work towards. And that's important. I was actually missing that for a long time in my life. And, part of it was it was too academic for me, I think, it was just too like, oh, your goals gotta be this. And it didn't really relate to me. So I like the fact that the world can be your goal, whatever it is, and to kind of dig deep into that. Obviously the skills, she brought up durable skills again. We've heard it over and over and over with America Succeeds. I really like that people are starting to use that term over and over again. Just to kind of give it some legitimacy. Like it's, you look at, if you want to just Google durable skills, you'll see the wheel. And America Succeeds has done a pretty cool part about that. And the other thing, though, is connections, right? Connections. I'll be honest, I don't think outside of an entry level job, um, I've ever seen anybody get that far without connections. And to start, working with people outside of the educational landscape, to make connections. She had the story about the DA. That those three things are so important, so important. And the more that we can set these things up in a traditional school system, where students have these opportunities to do those three things, aspiration, skills, and connections, she's spot on. I don't know. What do you think there?
I she did that, and then also, she kind of tore down the whole career day field trip.
Hmm.
We've explored that topic before, and just like how you can expand it, and gave really thoughtful ideas around, like, if you're doing anything, that's great. And we, NAF and lots of people that we talk to just want to expand it.
Hmm.
Sometimes it can be like you can just get stuck in your own like blind spot. And I feel like she gave some really good pointers of things that you can do to elevate, like even if you just bring in a guest speaker, you
Right.
know, how can you better prepare the guest speaker for like not just the topic that you're having them for, but maybe sharing out more than just like, I don't know, the traditional like, hey, I'm just gonna talk about this topic, but like, how did you get here? And like, does it matter? Like, do you just reaching those students maybe more where they're at? And I think it's so important, instead of asking that question of what do you want to be when you grow up, is like, what is your next step? Like, what are you aspiring for currently?
Hmm.
What interests you? And helping develop someone around things they already enjoy and can be so much more powerful. And then you're going to get someone talking, right? You're
Right.
like, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm not sure. This feels like if I don't answer with what you're expecting me to answer, then I'm going to feel some type of anxiety around it. Because I mean, I know that when I was a little kid, I don't remember what it was that I, wanted to be, that it just got a weird reaction. Like maybe it was like, oh, I want to be a circus trainer. I don't know. It was something like, and people would be like, why do you want to do that? But as soon as I started saying something like, oh, I want to be like an archaeologist, or I want to be a judge, or I want to be a dentist, I remember getting like, ooh,
Hmm.
oh, like I had to have like an aspiration that was really high, quote unquote, to get like a certain reaction. And it wasn't like, oh, you enjoy math and science and like or sports and movement, and I wasn't really into art, but I don't know, like the conversations just, maybe I felt like I had to do something because of the reactions from adults. And I for me it didn't affect my journey, but for others I'm sure it does.
Oh yeah. Well, if you think about it every day, like somebody's like so and so's in med school now, and you're like, ooh. Like I think you bring up a very good point of, one of the things that I really like there's a couple things. If you want to understand this next generation, go back to the Mark Perna like that conversation because first off, he said something so brilliant is like, are you yes, let's go? Are we all right, I'm okay, or I'm just chill today, right? Like he went through those three things. And I think that's the first question of, where are you? Especially as a youth, like today, what are you feeling, or this week, or all about this? Where are you on that? 3, 2, 1, doesn't matter. I just want to meet you where you are. And then the other thing is like breaking these things down, right? Because I feel like underneath all of this is confidence. It's all confidence. I didn't have confidence. I didn't have confidence coming out of college because I checked the boxes, but no one went deep into, my aspirations, my skills, and especially my connections, right? That it was just like I did the school part, right? And so I was your typical Gen Xer who went right through college and then I was starting to figure it out. What I like about what Brooke is talking about and all our guests in this series are, how do you go like if you wanted to be like I don't know, a circus trainer, great. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's go. Where are you on that spectrum? Are you yes? Are you I'm just thinking about it? Or am I like I'm just going to chill and kind of flop around the idea? And also, like the response shouldn't be like, oh no, you shouldn't do that or whatever. I think it's just building confidence because what ends up happening, right, Allie, is we're like, yeah, I'm going to be this. So I'm going to be a surgeon, right? When you're 10 or 11 or 12, and you know that you've given yourself so much buffer between yourself and that goal that it's not going to damage your confidence when you're like, as a surgeon, it was like 80 years of school. I don't want to go. I've heard that so many times from high school students um, until I started kind of the Mark Perna approach. And then, kind of going back into, well, what do you like to do? Going back to what Brooke has put together with NAF and in the organization, there's a lot of pieces to that where you can pull out those small pieces to build confidence within a young person or an adult, and for that matter, and to adapt and build upon like the small pieces because I feel like those big gaps, and she mentioned the gaps as well, when somebody has these ginormous aspirations, they're like, okay, what's step one?
Mm.
So that's big.
The other big part that I I love that NAF is doing is their work-based learning tracker. Like so there's this idea in the fitness industry, and I have done some personal training over the years and whatnot. And a
Mhm.
lot of like it's much easier to convince someone who already likes working out that they want a trainer than it is for someone who like has never worked out. Like you're not you want to help the people that have never been in the gym and don't know how to use any of the equipment, but it's hard to sell to them because they don't really see it as like a value. But then you get into this like worried well majority of like they are worried about their health, but they're probably like in a better spot than someone who isn't worried at all.
Mhm.
But in the high school realm with the tracker, they can see like Allie's done 20 work-based learning experiences and has explored all of these things. She probably has some idea of what she wants to do. Peter, just because Brooke used me and you as examples, only done
I
one.
know. I've got no experience.
And the irony is it's like the opposite probably, but you know what I'm saying? Like anyway, like, but you can have really intentional conversations about seeing that. Like I just think, you let's use the resources that are in the school, not for the worried well. Like they're gonna
Right.
figure it out. And it's not to like discard them, but like they probably have a lot of the resources and connections and everything, right? So how can we really get to the silent majority or the forgotten majority? And we've heard it over and over in the series. by different speakers about like how schools are really not focused on the majority,
Right.
right? Like Kevin Fleming was like the 127. For every like one surgeon, you need like two nurses and you need like seven techs in a hospital. Well, right, like if your next step after high school isn't to be a surgeon, but like because you don't know that you want to do 80 years of school, but you're like, okay, I want to get something in the medical field. I'm sure there is a work-based learning experience you can have in high school that can then maybe lead to an internship or an apprenticeship or
Mhm.
something that's I don't know, 3 to 6 month training program that can put you in a career path for a couple years in the hospitals. They can let you know, is this even something I want to pursue? Because if it is, well, now you have more drive to go pursue being a surgeon because you've already seen the gaps in the field.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, for those who are listening, we know it's not 80 years. We're just kind of I don't want to like people like you said 80 years. It's not 80 years. It's 75. No, but yeah, you're spot on there. Really kind of understanding what are those pieces to build. The other thing that we kind of like talked about, we talked about this just before we jumped on this podcast, but I see it as well with the work based learning programs that we have at the school I'm at, is this is not just a school thing, and it can't be just a school thing. There's a lot of people who are like the school or the parents should teach this. And I used to like think, all right, well, you get what you get and whatever, you don't throw a fit. But a lot of people out there will throw a fit and is like, oh, well, schools should teach all these skills and da da da. Well, we can't do it without experiences, right? And I think that's super important because I've known people in networks that are just like, well, these kids don't know anything da 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 about X, Y, and Z in business. And I'm like, yeah, but you're in that business. Can you maybe host an intern? Can you do a team-based challenge? Can you do something, right? And then most of them will start to turn and say, oh, well, yeah, maybe I could. There's still some curmudgeon ones out there. Also, looking at the smart ones. And we were talking about this. You kind of brought this up with, people who partner with these organizations and such. I don't want to name names. You guys can go look at them up, but they're super, super smart. Why are they smart, Allie? You say it. You say it.
Oh, right. Corporations who are partnering with organizations like NAF, I mean, and Brooks talked about this, they're shaping their pipeline. They're being intentional. Because here's the deal. If you can get a young person exposed to the field and get them for a year or two to work for you when they're young and they don't necessarily know, they just know their next step is a job and they need to make money and so that they have time to figure out what is the next step beyond it. Well, you are growing your own corporation by getting that exposure, and your pipeline is then, potentially maybe that person does work for you for 1 or 2 years. Maybe you get them young and then they grow in your organization and you have a leader that you got because you invested in a partnership with a school district. Because as Brooke said in the podcast, right, it is much harder to steer the ship after college. So that's like the mountain that NAF kind of helped employers and employer partners see is like you have it's a much lower investment in your time probably and resources and money to get the attention of a younger person interested in maybe it is just 6 months or a year, but you just got 6 months or a year of productive work out of someone that you otherwise never would have heard of your company. They're like, and or it could be decades.
Mhm.
So I don't see like why more corporations and businesses that are like, we have nobody that is applying for our jobs, right? Like, and I don't know, like even in the education field, we're hearing like there's less enrollment for teachers and whatnot. How can schools like get teachers back excited to be in the field, but then also promote their own career path? Like they have the front center stage for it, and if you're not investing heavily into making educating at your school district a great experience, you're not shaping your own pipeline, but
Right.
schools have all this power to like build this really strong community, and organizations like NAF and that type of a partnership can really do that. Well, then when you have those great community partnerships and everything, then people want to work and stay in the community. And we have people like Sylvester, uh, that we had on earlier this year, or was the end of last year? It's back a little bit, but he really showcased how investing in a program for 5, 10 years and transforming the community over that amount of time can just drastically change things. And like if you have students like building the houses, then they could be living in the houses and they would want to stay in that house because they had a hand in the house. And it's this really beautiful cycle. The same thing in education, I think, just to even take Brooke's point that step further, is the cycle of the community in the school,
Mhm.
and really showcasing the school as this really awesome center point. You would totally want to work here and invest in your own community. Like it can be a really great wheel that and focal point for a community, because youth really, they are the future, and they have all these big dreams and ideas that it's contagious. And so like you would want to be part of that. I mean, if you ask high school educators, why do you get up at 5 a.m. to teach at 7 a.m., and it's the kids,
Mhm.
because they are at such a cool development point in their life. And to be able to, as Brooke said, reach one, teach one, it will change your life and it will change theirs. So, so
Yeah.
much opportunity here to bring it full circle.
I go back to, and I want to kind of like continue on with these companies and the community members, like you were saying. I go back, and it was years ago where Gary Vee said, if you want to know what's coming down the pipeline, what's next in what's the next big thing, he's like, just follow what the 13, 14-year olds are doing. Like listen to them, learn with them. And I got to tell you, we have some people in our network who are working with our interns at the high school level who are very intentional on that, and they are doing very well. And I mean like mom and pop shops, smaller entities. I'm not talking about these big, huge corporations because it's like a Titanic. It's hard to turn around sometimes or turn. But with these young like people coming in, you learn. The people get it, they get it. They're like, I want to learn with them, right? Like, so what they'll do is they'll take somebody like Mark Perna's book, they'll go through it, they'll listen to what Gary Vee's saying, they'll jump into an organization like Brooks, and then they start to really dig deep into, okay, let's not tell these kids what to do. Let's work with them to grow together because every generation is different. And I really think there's so much uncharted opportunity here that people don't understand. When you are working with a school and with youth, um, and you take some of the strategies of somebody like Mark Perna, Kevin Fleming has said it as well. You take these strategies and you really kind of put them to a learning sandbox. And we're talking micro internships here. We're not talking like in-depth 300-hour college stuff here. Like we're doing 30 to 60 hours, remote stuff, hybrid stuff. I mean, today just in class, I had a young lady who's working on a marketing piece with a mom and pop shop, and she's just loving it, right? And going all in. And, you know, she's getting like 14 bucks an hour, right? But she's learning these things, and that person who is working with her really understands that there is a lot of learning that could go on here to see who, number one, who is our next client, and number two is who is our next workforce. And I really want to hit on that because I know Brooke was kind of tapping around it a little bit, but if you know, you know. And so if you are obviously out here and all of a sudden you're on this Disrupt Education podcast and you're a business owner, and or you work somewhere and you want, like, you're hitting walls, like you don't know, maybe there's like you want to grow or you want to do something different, like this is a great place to do it. Like take a look at your local education systems and see if they have an internship program, and if they don't, build one or offer one. Like, it starts somewhere. But yeah, these programs are super, super engaging, and they're very intentional, and the outcomes there, I mean, there are no bad outcomes when you're working with somebody on their aspiration, skills, and connections. There just isn't. So I don't know. I love that last podcast. I could probably sit and have coffee with Brooke for like 3 hours because we're both like work-based learners. But what are your final thoughts on that?
I mean, I was like, dang, Peter, you're just dropping these final
I
thoughts.
know.
Just, I love it. It's so good. Um, I I really love the perspective that Brooke gave. 2% of high schoolers nationwide are exposed to internships or have had one
Mhm.
in high school. And those in the NAF community are 30, 40%. But they're not done yet. They're like,
Yeah.
they still realize the gap. So I, no matter where you're at, whether you have one high school student that you know of in your school that is done or is doing an internship versus you're a school district that like tries to put all of your students through it, like there is room to grow just by one,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And the major theme of this fall series that we didn't necessarily anticipate is that disrupting education can it can be something small, like
Mhm.
just tracking what the students are doing. Like it doesn't have to be NAF's tracker, but like for whatever makes sense in your school district, tracking what your students are doing, and then be more intentional with the conversations that you're having about their next step, not what they're going to do for the rest of their life, but their next step. And like bringing in people or resources to do it. Because if you can reach one student, you can reach more. And so I think just focusing on one student you want to reach in the next month, like let's just make this a challenge for the end of the year for those listening. Like, what is one any age student, K through 12, that you can impact and reach and like help them develop a skill or a connection or help them really just uncover an aspiration that they didn't know by having a conversation, a conversation, and then let us know how that went. We love hearing stories and we're trying to showcase more stories. And so for those of you listening, if you take on this challenge by the end of 2024, please let us know of like what you did to reach one, teach one in some capacity to kind of disrupt education because if everybody listening does that and then shares it out with somebody else, imagine the impact. Imagine the impact. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
really
know.
hoping that people listen and then share back to us, what they did or tried, because we are a community and we're trying to grow it. And just to help you guys disrupt education in these, they seem small, but they have these wide, wide ripple effects. And it's organizations like NAF have been around for 40 plus years that really can showcase, man, look at all the district partners. And I'm sure they started with one and now 2023 they had 113,000 people. If they didn't start with that one, they wouldn't be where they are now.
Exactly. That's a great wrap up right there. That's cool. Felt like I jumped out of a plane. It's awesome. No, that's I really like that. And if you want to, honestly, I'll say it again. Like this is the end. This is a Monday when we're recording this, and it's the end of the day and going into evening, and I still feel like let's go. And that's really what, we want people to really feel, and to have a place to really find that in aspirations, right? Like, and then to hone in on your skills as educators and to connect. There we go. Those are the three things. If you haven't listened to Brooke, go back to that last episode last week. That's what we're going over. Thank you so much for being listeners of the Disrupt Education podcast. We really do appreciate you guys. As Ali said, share out your stories, connect with us. All our connections are in every episode down in the notes. Reach out. we're getting like a lot of requests and a lot of different opportunities to work with people. So very, very happy about that. But for this episode, that's going to end it. For Alli Privitt, I'm Peter Hostrawser. Thank you so much for listening to the Disrupt Education podcast. We'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrawser or Alli Privitt.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.